Rajasha in the mode of passion. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The worship of deities in the temple by a separatist with a motive for material enjoyment, fame and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. Purport. The word separatist must be understood carefully. The Sanskrit words in this connection are Bhimadrik, Bhinnadrik, and Pitak Bhavaha. A separatist is one who sees his interests as separate from that of the Supreme Lord. Mixed devotees or devotees in the modes of passion and ignorance think that the interest of the Supreme Lord is supplying the orders of the devotee. The interest of such devotees is to draw from the Lord as much as possible for their sense gratification. This is the separatist mentality. Actually, pure devotion is explained in the previous chapter. The mind of the Supreme Lord and the mind of the devotee should be dovetailed. A devotee should not wish anything but to execute the desire of the Supreme. That is oneness. When the devotee has an interest or will different from the interest of the Supreme Lord, his mentality is that of a separatist. When the so-called devotee desires material enjoyment without reference to the interest of the Supreme Lord, or he wants to become famous or opulent, by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Personality, by utilizing the mercy or grace of the Supreme Lord, he is in the mode of passion. Mayavadis, however, interpret this word separatist in a different way. They say that while worshipping the Lord, one should think himself one with the Supreme Lord. This is another adulterated form of devotion within the modes of material nature. The conception that the living entity is one with the Supreme is in the mode of ignorance. Oneness is actually based on oneness of interest. A pure devotee has no interest but to act on behalf of the Supreme Lord. When one has even a tinge of personal interest, his devotion is mixed with the three modes of material nature. Om Agnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurmitan Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manabhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadammayam Dadati Swa Padantikam Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestha Bhutale Krita Chaitwata Swami Vishyanabhisandhya Yasha Aishwaryam Evava Archadev Archayad Yomam Prichak Bhava Sarajashaha. The worship of deities in the temple by separatists with the motive of material enjoyment, fame and opulence is devotion in the mode of passion. Yeah. So we see in this chapter explanation of devotional service by Lord Kapila. You see in the beginning of the chapter, Mother Devahuti is asking few questions to her son, Lord Kapila. She is asking about, can you provide more details of bhakti, right? devotional service? Can you provide more details of bhakti, the nature of time, and the cycle of birth and death? Sanshaya. And Lord Kapila starts explaining about devotional service, answering her first question. Can you give more detail about bhakti? So he begins with bhakti in guna, right? Devotional service in the mode of ignorance was explained in the previous words, and here is in this words it's talked about devotional service in the mode of passion. That how, especially in the purport we see the word separatist in the words, right? There's a word Pitak Bhava, or Srila Prabhupada mentions Pitak Bhava, and Bhinna Dvek means separatist. Separatist means a person having separate interest than the interest of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He wants to enjoy his senses, Vishya, right? He wants to enjoy his senses by contemplating on the Vishyan, sense objects, right? And for his own sense gratification, So his will is different than the will of the Supreme Lord. The will of the Supreme Lord is that means Mamai Vancha Jiva Loke, that means these are my part and parcel portions of the Supreme Lord are the living entities. So living entities' constitutional position is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? The constitutional position is to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Use all the senses in service of the master of the senses, Rishikesha. But instead of doing that, when they enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord, when they have a separate agenda, right, that is separatist. That is defined by Srila Prabhupada, separatist, and in these words, that is devotional service in the mode of passion. Right. The entire Bhagavad Gita is based on yoga. And what is yoga? Union. It comes from the word union. Union of desires of the individual consciousness and supreme consciousness. Right. A union of desires between the individual consciousness and supreme consciousness is yoga. When the union is by performing fruitive activities, it is called karma yoga. When it is the union of that desires between the individual consciousness and supreme consciousness is by philosophical speculation, it is jnana yoga. When it is by the eightfold mystic yoga process, it is called Ashtanga yoga. And when it is by devotional service, it is called bhakti yoga. So what is bhakti yoga? Bhakti yoga is a union of desires between the individual consciousness and supreme consciousness by performance of devotional service. But instead of yoga, instead of the union of desires, when the desires of the individual soul is to enjoy separately from the Supreme Lord. If they are worshipping, if their intention of worship is so that they can exploit um, the fame and opulence involved in the worship for their own purpose, that is devotion, the mode of passion. That is devotion, the mode of passion. We see devotees coming to a temple sometimes, they want to pose themselves in front of the deities, to take picture, as if deities are the backdrops. Right? Deities are not our backdrops. Our entire mission is to serve the deities. Right? Our entire mission is to serve the deities. Yascha deve parabhakti yatha deve tatha guru. One who has implicit faith in the spiritual master, who is a direct representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who also has no separate agenda than the worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one who has implicit faith in the spiritual master and the Supreme Personality of Godhead, right? To him, all the purports of the Vedic literature are automatically revealed. But say, one wants to get knowledge, right? And he acquires getting knowledge, but his entire mood of getting knowledge is not to propagate the science of Krishna consciousness, but in the name of propagation, to increase his self-prestige, right? So, I'll be a big kathakar, I'll be a big this, I'll be a big that, I'll be a big kirtaniya, right? When that mood comes, and not the Supreme Lord, I am this, I am that, I am that, I am that. It is all in the mode of passion, right? Srila Prabhupada mentions about the impersonalists, the Mayavadis. Also, they worship the Supreme Lord to become one with the Supreme Lord, which is another adulterated state of devotional service in the mode of material nature, right? So, ultimately, one needs to come to pure devotional service. Right? Ultimately, one needs to be fixed in pure devotional service. Na dhanam, na janam, na sundarim, kabitamba jagadish kamaye. Mama janmani janmanishware bhavatat bhakti ahituketvai. Right? Unalloyed devotional service. Unalloyed devotional service. No attraction for wealth for his own enjoyment. No attraction for the number of followers. Right? No attraction for enjoying separately from the Supreme Lord. Right? But be situated in unalloyed devotional service. When you are situated in unalloyed devotional service, automatically, because that is our real constitutional position, automatically a person feels bliss. Right? But when he is contaminated with the modes of nature, he forgets winning real bliss, but tries to anchor for temporary flickering happiness by satisfying his senses separately from the Supreme Lord. right? Separately from the Supreme Lord, a separatist. Yeah. So that's devotional service in the mode of passion, right? Um, a pure devotee has no interest but to act on the behalf of the Supreme Lord. Right? He acts on the behalf of the Supreme Lord. Has no separate interest. The moment he has separate interest, a tinge of personal interest, his devotion is mixed with the three modes of material nature, either mode of goodness or mode of passion or mode of ignorance. And Lord Kapila here explains devotional service in these different modes. Also, we see that today is a very auspicious day, appearance of the consort of Lord Ramachandra, Mother Sita, and the appearance of also Lord Nityananda Ram, Mother Janava. Right. So we will try to just talk a little bit about Mother Sita and Mother Janava. Right. Mother Sita, Sita Devi, she's the daughter of Bhumi Devi. Right. When Janak Maharaj in Mithila, Janakpur, is the king of Janakpur, when he was ploughing the field to prepare it for a sacrifice, yagya, right? To prepare it for yagya, from the field he unearthed a golden casket in which he found Mother Sita, and he was completely overjoyed. Before that, he didn't have any daughters, and from ploughing the field, Mother Sita appeared, and that's why her name is Sita, right? Ploughing the field by the yoke or the plough, right, is Sita. So he named the baby as Mother Sita. And we see, how from her childhood she had immense, she was very beautiful, the most beautiful person in the world, and had immense wonderful qualities, had immense strength, that while she was playing as a child, there was this big bow, Dhanush of Lord Shiva in the courtyard, and there was some speck of dirt nearby, while they were playing, and something went by. So to pick up that, she completely lifted the bow and picked up whatever she was playing with, or for cleaning, basically, yeah, for cleaning. So now that bow cannot be lifted, it was so heavy that it cannot be lifted by many, many people put together. And here she's just picking up that bow like a toy. Seeing that, Janak Maharaj decided that she has this immense strength, spiritual potency of the Supreme Lord. I will marry her to only that person who is able to lift the bow and string the bow with numbs. Yeah, string the bow. And we see when Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman, led by Vishwamitra Muni, when they come to the assembly of Janak Maharaj, when the Swayamvar of Lord Sita is happening. So many kings came, they could not even move the bow. And when Lord Ramachandra came, immediately lifted the bow, as if like a toy, string the bow, and to break the pride of Parshuram, even broke the bow in two pieces. Right. So that's how we see then Mother Sita is wedded to Lord Ramachandra, who is not different than the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Maryada Purushottam. And then we see that Mother Sita follows Lord Ramachandra in the forest for 14 years, carrying out the wishes, the boons which Maharaj Dashrath had given to Mother Kaikai. Right. And yeah, so many pastimes of Mother Sita. She's always serving Lord Ramachandra. Right. She's not different than the goddess of fortune herself. Right. But completely dedicated in the service of the Supreme Lord. Right. So that's Mother Sita. And then today we also have the appearance of Janava Devi, another great personality, the consort of Lord Nityananda Ram and Gaur Nitai. Lord Nityananda, who is not different than Lord Balaram, is married to these two daughters of Suryakan Sarakela, right? Surjada Sarakela, who was a resident of Saligram. And he had these two daughters, Vishuddha and Janava, who were non-different than Varuni and Revati, the consort of Lord Balaram. Just as Lord Nityananda is not different than Lord Balaram, Varuni and Revati also appears as Vishuddha and Janava. And they both were married to Lord Nityananda. Then we see that Mother Vishuddha departs early, and Janava Mata is has later on she travels with Lord Nityananda, and when Lord Nityananda, Advaita Acharya, Shivas Pandit and all leave this manifested Leela of the Lord, she carries out the mission of Mahaprabhu as a Vaishnavi so vigorously that she was considered the topmost Vaishnavi, right? Inspiring the devotees of this Srinivas Acharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and Shyamananda Pandit. To her, the waters of Ganges also appeared the deity Gopinath, who later on she installs those deities of Gopinath in one set of deities were worshipped by her daughter Ganga Devi. Another set were installed in Vrindavan, the Gopinath deity. Right. So in Keturi Gram, when there was a big Sankirtan hosted by Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, and Shyamananda Pandit under the guidance of Mother Januva, big Kirtan Mela or Sankirtan. The Sankirtan went on to such a pitch that in that assembly, though the Panchatattva at that time had already left, they appeared. Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, Advaita Acharya, right, Gadadhar Pandit, and Shivas Pandit appeared in that assembly. And thousands of devotees were just chanting the holy name of the Lord. Right. So that's Mother Janava. We are already at 7:01, so we won't take any questions. If anybody has any further questions, they can post it in Nityam Bhagavata Sevya or can contact me. Okay. Mother Janava Devi ki jai. Sita Maharani ki jai.
Jai.
Yavar Ramachandra Bhagwan ki
Jai.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll like to wish you all a safe and Krishna conscious day ahead and like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama,
Ram,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Ram,
Hare
Ram
Hare.
Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Krishna
Hare, Hare
Krishna,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Ram,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna
Hare, Hare
Krishna,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama
Ram,
Rama,
Hare Ram,
Hare.
Hare.
Shri Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Jai Nrsimha, Praladesha, Jaya Padma Mukha Padma Bringam, Ugraveeram
Ugraveram,
Mahaveeram
Vishnu,
Sarvatomukam,
Sharatam
Nrsimham
Sarvatomukam,
Bhadram
Narsingham
Mrityunjayam
Vishnam
Namamyam.
Bhadram, Mrityu Namami.
Nrsimha Bhagwan ki Jai, Mother
Jai,
ki Jai.
Jai.
Let's offer our humble obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas of the Lord. Vancha kalpataru
Vanchakalpatarubhasya Kripa Sindhubhave Patitanam Pavan
Patitanam Pavane Vayo Vaishnave
Vaishnavedyo Namo Namah.
Vaishnavinda ki Jai.
Jai,
Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai.
Jai,
Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.
Jai.
Lord Premanande. Hari.
Hari, 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 Hari Bol. Thank you, everybody. Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
So,